side quest for the 1950s backlot with Feature Please, a heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
I'm your great-great-grandma's favorite purse. Your co-host, Peter.
Before we get into this week's episode, Peter, we have a new Feature Please venture that we want to make sure people are aware of in true Ferengi fashion.
This is going to be a bad episode.
And it's that we have a store. A store we will never make money off of, I guess, is we want to make clear. This is not the most widely listened to podcast on the internet. And Peter and I have never attempted to make it so or try and generate any real revenue off of it, except that which is there to pay for our bills. And we get very close to doing that. And we appreciate everyone who is subscribed to our Patreon. And we provide extra content. And if that's interesting to you, hey, we're on Patreon. Patreon.com/VeedYourPlease. You can find us very easily. But we've had requests over the years for merch. Thing is, we don't want to put in, spend a lot of money designing some things and then having to have a storefront because we wouldn't sell very much, right? If maybe 600 to 700 people listen to this show, it would, even if 10% of you decided to buy something, which if that many people wouldn't, it wouldn't generate enough money to deal with the costs of doing that. But fortunately for us, absolute rock star fan Kevin, who is also responsible for the rebranding mission patch and album cover and banner that we've been using, decided to take this on gratis as something to put up there so that while we'll never make any money off of selling the merch, given this is essentially a Teespring store, you can get stuff that is shall we say, designed for the Feature Please fan. So
that is to say, this is not merchandise. What we are selling are weapons.
Yes.
They are self-adhesive weapons that you can use to harm those around you, to insult loved ones, to cover the mirror at your favorite bar so nobody can see their face because it's a bunch of goofy Star Trek stickers no one would recognize. We're getting very close to Christmas. And if there's someone in your family that you really don't like or you want to piss off, what better way to do that than with some Feature Please yoga pants?
There is divorce potential in this store. There is the ability to initiate a very awkward conversation that you don't want to have about the extremely nerdy podcast that you listen to in this store. But most importantly, there's a Real Talk Tuvok sticker.
Yeah, Real Talk Tuvok. It looks like he pulled that off of the Funimation Threshold.
Not the Funimation. It was the TOS animated series version of Threshold that someone did.
Well, it was done in the Funimation style. I like it. It looks good. And yeah, if you've got a brother-in-law you really don't like, stick him with stickers of my face. He'll be like, "What's this fucking Hulk Hogan sticker?" And be like, "I don't know. I thought you were into that. I have no idea what that is."
But there are some mugs, there's some stickers, there's some shirts, there's even a hoodie, and as Peter alluded to, yoga pants / leggings. Really?
Goes great on any side view mirror for anybody in the parking lot that may have taken your space. Keep your glove box full of them. Make a lot of friends.
But by all means, go to zephus.store. That is ZEAFUS.store. You'll see it all there. Get as much as you want. Again, we're never going to see any kind of appreciable profit off of this. This is entirely for the self-gratification of Peter and I, who are the majority of the sales so far. No lie. And everybody else who just wants a little memento of the show and this pretty absurd journey we've been on for several years. So have at. And again, Kevin is amazing because he designed all of this stuff. He put up the store for us, and he's basically just managing it all since it's never going to amount to very much on our behalf. So Kevin, thank you. And my future Feature Please coffee mug also thanks you. And with a thanks out of the way, with now any appreciation for our world behind us, what episode of Enterprise did we watch this week?
Season 2, Episode 2, Carbon Creek.
What'd you think of last week? I told you first how I felt. I gushed about Shockwave Part 2. You were meh. This week, you have the floor first, Peter. What What'd you think of this thing?
First line of my notes as I started the TV up and having forgot what was coming up, I saw Carbon Creek and I saw that little quaint bullshit mining town thumbnail. I said, ugh, this. I've got a lot of thoughts on this thing. The biggest thought is, how is this episode 2 for season 2? How are you going to start the top of your season off with what is very clearly supposed to be mid-season filler?
It is not terrible. If someone tells you this is as bad as 1159 or like puts it in the strata of terrible Star Trek episodes, it's not even close. It's a relatively interesting little idea for, like you said, mid-season filler. This is season 2, episode 14 material.
I like that.
That's what this is. This is, well, we've got to take a break from our main storyline. We've done some serialized stuff. We got to do a quick one shot. And this is the week we could film this
Half the
backlot.
crew got killed in an alien infection, and there
Yeah,
was
something burnt down, and the sets. We can't film on the bridge this
came
week.
back and choked a bunch of people out, and this time we couldn't save them. The baseball episode I hear so much about out of Deep Space now. We just need to take a step back and catch a breather. I started off really resenting that I was going to have to watch this because I was in the mood to watch Star Trek. I was in the mood for some sci-fi. And I was like, man, this is fucking bullshit. Like, the story's stupid. The setup is stupid that it's T'Pol telling this story to Trip and Archer, of course, around the fucking dinner table or whatever. And I'm not really sure at what point it happened, but things turned around and I was like, I think it was about the point where he's in the mine collapse. And I was like, oh damn, I'm actually pretty vested in this. And I'm genuinely interested in what's going on, and I'm enjoying this episode. It crept up on me. There was some real corny, dumb shit humor. There is, I'm going to say right now, my clear pick for the most blatant, what's blatant sexual?
So it's blatant sexual exploitation. Oh yeah,
Oh
this
yeah,
is award winning. I mean, we'll get to that. I'm not surprised to hear you say it snuck up on you because, like I said, it's not terrible. There is a storyline here that's pretty good. It's just there's so much more you need to start developing about this universe you're in before we fucking do this. Like, if this was some late season stuff when you got a chance to breathe, it's actually kind of like neat to see like 3 Vulcan characters sort of interact
yeah.
with each other
That's
about
the other
humanity.
thing. There's 3 of the main cast in this. Now, I'm not going to lose any sleep that Mayweather and Reed don't get seen at all in this.
Right.
But Phlox, Hoshi, Shran,
True main cast member there, yeah.
yeah, Porthos, uh, everything you're saying is hitting the nail on the head. You had what I felt was a stumble for your big episode back. You look at season 1 and you look at your massive fucking viewership drop off, and you haven't really brought the numbers up on air yet.
Mm-mm.
But I can't imagine it's looking pretty at the tail end of season 1. And I don't know how quickly they get viewership numbers back once, through Nielsen or whatever. And if they can go, oh man, shit's really looking bad after the season premiere for season 2, like if they can emergency shuffle things around. But you're going to fucking come in after an entire season 1 of botches and misses and hemorrhaging your viewers, and you're going to come in with softball like this. What drugs are you on?
Yeah, this is the sort of show you make when you got to fill time where you're very confident in what you're doing. And maybe it's just that they've lost the fear, right? Like, they've been doing this so long. They've been doing it since the 1980s at this point. And they've been in charge of it since the Ensigns of Command, essentially. That's kind of when they stole the rest of the initiative away from the old guard. That they're just like, fuck it. This is what we want to do. We're just doing it, right? And they have no care for how many people are really watching anymore because they're desensitized to it. They're made men in Hollywood at this point. I mean, they're gonna do even more seasons after this and movies. Well, movie at least.
What point do you think they become aware that they're pulling the plug?
They don't know that the plug is being pulled until they are in season 4, because as we will discuss as we wrap up the show sometime in the future, Enterprise is still one of the best shows on UPN all the way until the end of the UPN. It is literally the end of the UPN that ends Star Trek Enterprise, because it is not a show that the combined UPN WB CW network is interested in having on it. Because the demo for Enterprise, while numerically larger than some things that you would think that it would be beaten by, like, say, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, is skewing older than they want for the ads. They want a young, fresh demo that is getting hit by these ads. And so we all know the kind of programming that ultimately succeeds on the CW, and you could never imagine something like Star Trek Enterprise being on that channel. There's a reason for that. So they are firmly ensconced in their world at this
Thinking
juncture.
they're going to get a minimum 7 and they can do
Yeah,
as they damn please because the
they're
fans.
fucking Star Trek, and they're still the biggest show on this fucking network. Not
Hmm.
close, aside from WWE SmackDown.
Well, let's get into talking some details here. Like I said, this is going to pick up at a real riveting dinner table scene. It's Trip Archer and T'Pol, and there's going to be some celebration. This is
Yeah,
T'Pol's 10-month mark.
1 year anniversary. So it's Paul at this juncture on this episode. This is 1 year since Broken Bow in terms of the show's timeline, and it certainly beats the 10-day record of the prior Vulcan that was serving on a Starfleet vessel.
Hey, congratulations to Paul. You're now eligible for paid time off and paid sick time.
Yeah, you get 5 days of sick time and you get 6 days of vacation. But you don't get to cash out the sick time if you quit, by
Use
the
it or
way.
lose it to
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, you got to use it or lose it.
No rollover here. She decides that she is going to celebrate by allowing herself the indulgence of some wine. We're supposed to act like that's a big deal. Has it felt to you like it has been a year of them out in space?
Honestly, it feels like a more compressed time period. If I was going to be blunt, they did a poor job of spacing out the space hazards in season 1, and it felt like they were happening a lot. So I would assume that it felt more like this was 6 months. But I get it. They're saying it's a year because in actuality, another show's been on for a year, so fuck it.
I think that they are missing things like night, where there's a log by someone saying, we've spent the past month and a half cataloging the star system.
Yeah.
People are getting bored. We're looking for something to do.
There's like a couple episodes at the beginning. They're like, oh man, we've been out here 6 weeks. We haven't seen shit, from like Trip or something. And that was it. After that, it's like feels like it's been one fucking banger after another for these guys, and it hasn't felt like a year. But yeah, it's because they haven't had that sort of dialogue moment where they discussed how long they've been fucking doing some boring science shit or something like that.
I don't really remember what the path. Oh. So then Archer's like, well, I got to do an evaluation on you. No offense. It's just business. And then DePaul's like, yeah, well, I got to do an evaluation on you too, motherfucker, because Vulcan High Command's got your number and they're just looking freezing nitpick. None of that gets discussed. What I need here at this, when they were toasting her, is not congratulations, it's been 1 year. It's congratulations, you're really part of the crew now. Gosh, did you stick it to Vulcan High Command at the end of Shockwave Part 2?
Yeah. Thanks for sticking up for us.
It was you that sold them Starfleet Command on keeping us out here. This is to celebrate you, and that's why we're going to make it the focus on it. They don't mention any of that stuff, but she does say, yeah, Vulcan High Command wants me to evaluate you as a captain. And then Archer's like, ooh. And he's like, hey, by the way, because I've been stalking you, what with my face falling in your boobs and me telling you to share a blanket with me and all the other creepy, inappropriate shit that's gone on, while combing through your service records / stalking you, I saw that you had a 5-day leave 6 years ago or whatever fucking crazy number to Carbon Creek. I was just wondering if you'd tell me what that is about. Imagine your boss calling you in for a meeting or going to dinner and asking you some super fucking specific, overly intrusive question like that. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, like, I'm sorry. So you were reading all of my vacation requests in my HR jacket and decided just to bring up in front of one of my other coworkers where I go on my vacations that are like in the notes that I put in my PTO requests? Are you fucking serious right now? Call HR. Call them now. And my lawyer.
Remember, in the depths of space, no one can hear you call HR.
In the jacket says to Paul, who was stationed in Sausalito, went to Carbon Creek, Pennsylvania. It's in the middle of, Appalachian territory and coal mining areas of the state of Pennsylvania. A real thing, by the way. Or at least was. Not as much coal mining going on in the United States anymore. And Archer's like, what the fuck? The Vulcans don't go to fucking Carbon Creek, Pennsylvania. Like, it's not a thing that happens. What's going on? What's with this?
She's like, well, I saw that movie Silent Hill, and I wanted to go and try and find that one town that was shut down because the fire's still burning under there.
I find the idea of Pyramid Head fascinating.
How good would... Just like Voyager was all wrapped up with Event Horizon, if there was like a weird reoccurring theme of Silent Hill and Enterprise, I would like Enterprise way more. And if we could fit Jolene Blaylock into one of those creepy nurse outfits with the mutilated faces,
she could just be the cop. She can be the cop in the motorcycle jacket,
and obviously with the midriff shirt. Yes,
yeah,
good point.
Absolutely,
thank you. Yeah.
So. T'Pol's like, I had a personal
Mayweather in as the nurse because then he can't talk and you can just see those shredded abs and it's
everyone's happy there. But T'Pol says it was for personal reasons, and like Tucker's like, personal reasons? You fucking know someone there? Like, you have like an old buddy with you went to Penn State with? Like,
she's like, no,
what's that? And so she kind of looks a little, defensive, and then kind of resets herself. This is part of what I was saying last week. Like, Jolene Blaylock got better at playing this character in her off season. She decided to tweak her performance, and she kind of like eyes up both Tucker and Archer and says, I can tell you a story about first contact between humans and Vulcans that happened there in the 1950s. Would you like to hear that story? They're like, no, that didn't happen. In Zapper and Cochrane. It was in Montana. I saw first contact. It's bullshit. It's like, no, this is what happened. You want to hear the story? You two want to fucking hear it? And that's how the episode begins. I like that she was kind of impish about it a little bit, like feeding into their interest in what's going on.
She goes, no, this is where first contact happened. And they're like, oh, and then we diddle-doo.
It's 1957! Doo-wop is all the rage!
Look at all these old Ford trucks. 37s eat your hearts out. We find out that T'Pol's great-great-grandmother, right?
Her mother's mother. So that would be her great-grandmother. No, yeah, great-great-grandmother. Correct.
A strong Vulcan tradition of serving as first mates. Did we also throw in the stupid joke yet about how Archer's like, well, Trip's like, how old are you anyways? And, oh, gee, Trip, that's classified.
Whatever.
God forbid we get through without that boomer humor.
It was the most cringe part of the episode by far.
No, the sheet scene was the most.
Okay, I almost forgot. Yes, I'm sorry. Humor about T'Pol being old because she's a Vulcan is the second worst thing that happens in this episode.
So there the Vulcans are. They're up in space. They got their weird leather biker outfits on.
Sputnik flies by.
Good old Sputnik.
Good old Sputnik flies by, a recognizable Sputnik with its beep boop.
All of a sudden, the repulsor lifts fail at a critical point too close to Earth. Like they do, they're going to have to crash land.
And they find a spot to land that is in the wilderness where there is no settlements. And of course, this crash very conveniently kills their elderly captain. And Tamir, who is being played by Jillian Blaylock because it is her ancestor, is now the leader of the 3 surviving Vulcans from the crash, who include Mistral and Strawn are the other 2. And they had all of their shit broken that would help them communicate. They did put out a distress signal. They have no idea if it even transmitted, let alone if anyone heard it, and are unsure as to what to do until they run out of rations, think about murdering a deer and feasting on its flesh, and contemplate maybe we need to go in town and save our lives. I do like that the conversation that they have is a little tinged by the fact that they have self-preservation instinct. And guys basically is like, I'm not just fucking dying out here. I've decided that if it's between me just starving to death in the woods of this planet I don't know and going to the nearby settlement, I'm going to the fucking settlement.
Well, no, it's interesting, right? Because the idea of hunting the deer down comes up, and they would rather risk cultural contamination than breaking those vegetarian practices. But the third option on the table is we just starve to death and follow the rules. And I like the counter to that is, well, what do you think is going to happen when they find our bodies in our spaceship eventually? What kind of contamination do you think is going to happen there? Us dying is not going to do anyone any favors. Although I would have been down if one of them was like, well, we could like incinerate ourselves with a phaser disruption, or, you know, jump on a grenade, or I don't know, other gruesome space death things. So Mistral says, fuck it, I'm going into town. Screw your chain of command. And then T'Pol's
Tamir.
Let's just go with Gilf.
Gilf. Just Gilf.
Super Gilf. She's like, well, I'm going to, but I'm in charge and you don't talk to anybody. I didn't think that Mistral was going to be a big of focus in this episode as he was, nor did I feel that I was going to come to appreciate him by the end to the degree that I do. This is a pretty solid character. I don't know who played him, but the guy's got a good performance throughout, and I think even despite all the shit I know about Vulcans and the portrayal of Vulcan and stuff, like his descent into rebellion works well. So
the guy who played Mistral is the same guy who played all of the young Nazis across all of the Star Trek properties.
Really?
So, yeah. So remember
the guy who knocked up Alana?
The guy who knocked up Alana, he plays Nazis later in Enterprise again. Yeah, and he played one. He played the worst Borg of all time.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Well, good on him for redeeming himself, I guess.
Not for the Nazis, for one. He was fine as a Nazi.
That's the real war crime.
He did a pretty fine job as a Nazi. It was one that was problematic. Okay, that was problematic. So they clear makeup for it, though.
Sneak to the outskirts of town, and they go, "Oh, there's clothes. Let's just steal the clothes." So much going on here. Let's start with the mildest level of insult. There isn't just clothes like hanging. My mom uses a wash line. She refused to dry anything, so all my clothes growing up were always fucking sun faded and weird.
Right, of course.
Let me tell you what you don't put on the clothesline: hats and shoes.
Yeah, because you're not washing those the way that you would wash other clothes.
I never saw my mom put a pair of high heels or work boots on the fucking clothesline. So the idea that they got head to toe full fucking costumes out of this. Ridiculous. But nowhere near as ridiculous.
So, thank you, Peter. Thank
You
you
have
for
the
allowing.
floor.
Thank you for this. So the gag here is they are changing into human clothes, and they're talking about their plans. What they decide to do, because this show cannot possibly go an entire episode without exploiting Jolene Blaylock, if at all possible, is have her undressed entirely, changing into human clothes with a bed sheet that is backlit and blocking her view from camera. So the intention and the effect is to show her silhouette naked through the to the camera while the dialogue is occurring. There are two things to note about this effect. One, she is actually naked behind it, and you can tell because you can see the silhouette of her fucking nipples.
Mm-hmm. I
Dead
got pictures.
ass.
It's true.
Right there. And two, they allow it to go on long enough that when they do a gag that she put on the clothes backwards, that she goes back to the bed sheet and takes the clothes off again, and it like continues on for just a few more seconds so that you maybe think you're going to get to see her nipple again before cutting it off right before that would happen.
Go back to Chakotay Fox, Beltran's sex machine, right?
Right.
Where Species 8472 has set up their ridiculous holodeck space station Starfleet command infiltration simulation.
Yeah, and Ellen Ty wants to bang the shit out of Robert Beltran.
Yeah, and he's hanging out in her quarters, and she goes up and she gets changed. She very clearly has a penis. Hey, you know what? I'll take it in that scene. It's a throwaway guest star. There's clear sexual undertones. Stuff's going forward. At this point, Beltran has charmed the pants off of everybody, and we can all understand why a space Mewtwo would be melting between the legs for him, right?
Of course.
Fine. It's not season 2, episode 2 in this goofy softball episode for your stumbling TV show where you've already chain exploited the female lead, and now you've got this goofy flashback. Let me tell you a story about my grandma.
And worse than that to me is that when Ellen Ty took her clothes off for that episode, she did so in context of a scene of seduction.
That's what I'm saying. It's the silk stockings. Like,
mm-hmm.
It's business time. We're going to be
Versus
doing business stuff.
That is, and all it is a scene to deliver exposition about their plan for interacting with humanity. Do a quick joke about not understanding how human clothes work. The exploitation of Jolene Blaylock's appearance is just something they decided to do for fun.
For funsies.
It's
also, too, the Vulcans are stupid enough, they're going to strip buck naked and change out of their spacesuits into clothes they're stealing in someone's backyard that is where they're stealing the clothes from. They're not just going to take the clothes and then go back in the woods. Like, this whole thing is fucking stupid.
Remember when we complained in Voyager about one scene where they shot B'Elanna and Seven of Nine from the top with their asses clearly like rather prominent in the shot?
They were crawling through the Jeffries too.
Talking about like men and having sex. We're like, man, this is weirdly like off kilter for Voyager to like do something so sexual. What a weird few seconds that was. That feels so quaint now. Like it feels adorable that was a little weird for this like this is just getting so cringe.
I mean, maybe somewhere they're like, hey, that kind of stuff scored really well, and all that gratuitous shit. Like, again, my dad really likes Enterprise, and I know he's got a thing for T'Pol. I'm assuming he ate the stuff up. And I mean, for the record, I like looking at pretty things, and she's pretty, but I'm still forced to be confronted. Like, this doesn't belong, and it's bad.
And maybe that's like a break this down even further. Seven of Nine, a lot of our dialogue about that is like, shot her low, put her in those fucking heels, made her ass look great. Listen, fucking Jerry Lynn looked like $1,000,000. Obviously, she's hot as hell in that show. No one's disputing that. No one's disputing that these people are attractive, and they are attractive to look at, and we enjoy looking at attractive things. But there comes a point where it becomes so obviously like exploitive for the purpose of exploiting that you're just like, this isn't cool.
She had her scene where she's like, okay, Harry, Kim, let's have sex. Take off your clothes. And then Harry like punks out and runs off. And like, that's pretty much the end of it. It's like, I don't know if Jerry Ryan just had the balls to be like, let's fucking stop with this.
And like when she was doing that, it was in service to the story, right? Like she's in the silky, chanteur's dress because she's the lounge singer in the World War II simulation. She's wearing the red dress in Chakotay's quarters in her simulation about going on a date. Like anytime they went for it, it was at least in service to what was going on, just like Ellen Tigh taking her clothes off. This is just ridiculous. It's pointless. It's weirdly, you can see her nipples. Like they went that far with it.
And I mean, this is a 1080p recording.
Yeah.
Right.
This high def.
Recorded high def. How I'm watching on my TV, I'm like, those are fucking nipples. Everybody at home was like, those are nipples. In its own, in a vacuum, in a sexy scene, I don't think we'd talk about it for 5 or 6 minutes like we have. But it's a button they keep pushing and everybody's sitting around grinning while they're doing it. And it sucks. And fucking.
It was once every 6 episodes would be different. It's every fucking week.
Yeah. I feel bad for her. So they get dressed. She puts the dress on the wrong way. And then, the hell's his name? I don't want to call him menstrual. It's Mestal? Metral?
Oh, Mistral.
Mestral.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, he's like, no, I think you got that on backwards. The fact this dude's like a human keener, I think bleeds through correctly very quickly in this. They get into town, they're walking, they catch people standing around a radio, really getting into the baseball game. T. Gilf's like, I bet it's violent combat. And he's like, no, I think it's entertainment. Like, this dude, he's coming off as a human. He's a real human fanboy very quickly.
Yeah, he read all the lore before going on the mission, He's like up to date on what's going on. And they finally find themselves at a bar and have the dramatic walk-in where everyone looks at these two weirdos with their weird haircuts. And I do like that the tension is played up of how careful they really should probably be being right now. Like these people don't know aliens are real. And we are aliens. We have to choose our words carefully.
No mention of the communist threat.
Yeah, you would expect that there would be some sort of red menace element to this, but especially because Sputnik and scientific discovery is such a big part of it. But because this was made post 9/11 and the Cold War is like dead and buried 10 years, I just think like they thought it would be more interesting to generalize it than make it
also,
about communism.
At some point, some sort of like X-Files, FBI, G-Man to show up and push things along. And I think that's kind of why I liked it, is they didn't go for that low-hanging fruit.
I wish they would have said they were refugees from like Poland or something, like that they're from Eastern Europe.
There's that plot pen coming out. I could have also gone for some explanation as to the language barrier. Did the universal translator for Vulcans exist back then? I think it would have been appropriate just to say, hey, we are specifically investigating these humans. We already know their language and all of us have learned it. So we can, spy on them effectively.
Yeah, they just know English. And there's no
Turns out 200 years ago, Vulcans also spoke English, and it wasn't them switching over to actually speaking Vulcan was a recent development.
When they get into the bar and have a little bit of an awkward first moment, they eventually hit upon a way to come up with money so that they can buy food, which is the real reason they're there. And that is to pool hustle.
Cue a really great billiards montage.
Truly a very intense, time intensive billiards montage. But the bet ends up being that if the local barfly wins, he gets to have a drink with T'Pol or to Jilf, and if Mistral wins, then they get paid off.
That
And
pay is
we
only
see it
like 25 cents.
25 cents a ball, right?
Oh, was it a ball?
Yeah, I think it was a ball. So it was for some
Oh,
steaks.
because I would be
Yeah.
like, you could buy a lot of groceries for 25 cents back in 1957.
Yeah, not quite that many. So I think they got a couple bucks off them, and they did in fact turn it into food. So after a very intense montage, Mistral rallies. He wins the match. They get paid off, and eventually, have the cash to be able to buy the groceries they need to survive.
How interesting that watching Mistral play pool nowhere near as utterly painful as Tuvok playing pool in God, what was that terrible Tom Paris?
Sandrines.
Ugh. Ugh.
So they cut back, I think, at this point to Enterprise itself when Tucker is starting to question what's going on here, as to say, like, this is absurd. This is such a fundamental retelling of history of Earth as we know it. You're like saying that Neil Armstrong didn't land on the fucking moon. You're telling me if a bunch of Vulcans crash landed in rural Pennsylvania in the middle of the 1950s and survived by doing some fucking pole hustling? Are you serious? Like, come on, man. I'm from Florida, but I'm not that from Florida that I'm going to believe this. But
I honestly think that the episode would have been better served by really minimizing these dinner scenes. Like I thought the flashback story ends up being charming enough that Scott Bakula's like I don't know condescending dinner tones just takes away from what's actually going on. But the important thing is they're laying the groundwork that Archer and Trip are extremely critical of what DePaul is telling him, and it's that's legit. Like, what do you mean first contact was not with Zephram Cochrane? Oh no, it's strongly documented in the Vulcan Science Academy annuals in our libraries and stuff, and it's like maybe this would have been the right time for Archer to have some of his world famous Vulcan racism and be like, more lies from the Vulcans, or just like yet again them withholding information, just something like fucking of course that was fake first contact and these guys have been holding back on us.
I think I would have preferred it more if Trip and Archer were like bought in from the start. They just were like, "What? No, keep going." Like they're super into the story, and they so buy in. And then the punchline at the end is like T'Pol like tells them they believe that story and that it was all a joke, and it was her learning from a year on the ship of how to tell a tall tale and how to be comedic, and then said, "You can evaluate me on my ability to absorb human culture based on how you believed my story."
And then
And then
scratch the purse scene at the end.
no, I like the person in the end. That it was actually true. That's the best part.
Well, I mean, she kind of pivots the whole thing to be like, no guys, I was just joking all along. Like once they really like push back and like almost razz her for the level of the story, and then she's like, yeah, I was just joking, ha ha ha, got you.
Yeah, it's a little passive at the end where it should have been more her making fun of them for believing it so that they never talk about it again. Because how could they have possibly believed something so ridiculous? Of course, this was a joke. T'Pol's just so next level as a Vulcan that she's mastered humor immediately. And then she goes back and being like, looks at the purse like, whew, got that one.
I would like the conversation to have been like Archer and Trip like leaning back in their chairs and like, I thought Vulcans can't lie, and like your grandma and her friends were just lying all over that motherfucker. Like, you guys are a bunch of liars. Vulcans are just huge liars. And she's like, yeah, but this is actually just a lie too. And so they wander into town. They hustle the dude for pool. They go out in the woods. They eat, but they figure out this is not sustainable. So they make the decision that they're going to move into town. They're going to get a 1-bedroom efficiency, and we are going to enter into like late 60s, early 70s sitcom humor.
I would say this is more firmly in the 1960s. The show takes place in the 50s, but it's definitely like a I Love Lucy style of
Which
comedy.
I did enjoy the shout out on that, given
Yeah, and given Desilu Productions uh, sort of background with Trek existing in that at all. They also mentioned the Twilight Zone, which was funny because it was rebooted on the UPN and being produced by the guy who produced DS9 at the time, which is why they did it. It was literally Enterprise was the lead-in to the Twilight Zone at the time this came out. To Gilf is working at the bar as like just like as a server, bartender slash janitor. Uh, the Mistral is working in the mine, just
I
getting
love
the
the idea
pickaxe,
of the Vulcan getting the black lung.
and Strawn is working as a local handyman, which he becomes very annoyed with and uses super tech sometimes to fix things that annoy him, like pipes
That might
that
have
are
been my
leaking.
turning point where I'm like, I'm liking this. Like watching this dude deal with a leaky sink and then be like, fuck it, I'm going to use a
Fuck it.
sonic screwdriver on this
Like,
thing.
fix this lead pipe. They're going to really regret building these in 100 years.
Maybe the 3 smartest people on the continent, and they're doing the most menial, low stakes stuff.
Because they got to stay anonymous. I like it. It's a neat premise. And they having kind of different reactions to humanity. Strong, Strom, Mo. We'll call him Mo because that is, in fact, the joke that they make, and he's very Mo-like.
Yes.
He doesn't want to be there. He doesn't like dealing with the stuff. He can't wait to get the fuck out of there. To Gilf is medium. She's trying to just like, let's keep a low profile and see what happens. All we can do is persist, sort of focus on doing anything. And of course, Mistral is very pro-human, spends a lot of time watching TV, and perhaps not coincidentally, he has a job where he is interacting with the humans all the time in the mine, and then they show him he goes to the bar with some regularity, evidently, and talks to the bar owner's son, a very bright young man named Billy, who is trying to go to college, which was an interesting subplot when college was a rare thing to go to. And this like one kid in this town is the only one who's going to potentially get to go because he's like the smartest fucking kid in the county, right? So it's kind of hard sometimes to recall a time when you couldn't just go to college if you were like at least just a medium intelligence. You would find some state school or some community college that you would take you if you wanted to go. This was an era where it was a fucking event if someone in your fucking city went to college. And he is the body of humanity's hopes and dreams for the future. That's what Billy's character represents. He constantly talks about, his expanding consciousness when it comes to other civilizations, when it comes to science, comes to discovery, and it is through him that the two Vulcan characters interact with him. Gradually come to appreciate humanity more as a sort of avatar of the potential future. It's well handled. I like the way that they set him up as that figure.
His character conflict is, of course, it's only a partial scholarship. Everybody in the community has been throwing money in the tip jar to try and get him the rest of the money he needs to be able to go. And if you cannot put 2 and 2 together to see that in the end it's going to be the Vulcans paying his way, then
sorry,
shame
you
on
shouldn't
you.
be watching
Shame
television.
on you.
Just throw your television in the garbage.
I like them focusing on this guy as like the B plot, and here's the hopes and dreams of what's going on, instead of the Kurtzman angle, which would have been redneck fist fight in the parking lot where all the rednecks get their asses kicked by the super strong Vulcans, and we kind of spit on humanity. I like the optimism, right?
Yeah, like all 3 of the Vulcan characters are treated well. Like this town is a nice, inviting little town in the Midwest. That's what it is. That's how it's portrayed.
And they call that out too.
They do.
Mistral's like, no, these guys, we've been treated well. you're being overly critical. To Gilf is like, because they know we're human, and if they thought we were aliens, we would be treated so well. Whatever. Mistral working down in the mines. No, okay. So he ends up going on a date with Billy's mom,
Yeah,
the
Maggie.
the bartender who they've kind of befriended. We get a little awkward session after they go see a baseball game where she very forwardly kisses him, and it's a little awkward, but he's like, "No, I like it." But
I like
unfortunately,
that. I like that Maggie was obviously a divorced mom type who's like, I'm desperately trying to get with a guy, and you seem like you got your shit mildly together
yeah.
relative to everyone else in this town. So I'm gonna fucking throw it at you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you were kind of awkward about it. Now I'm very self conscious.
But that comes to an abrupt end when you see Tegilf giving him like the death stare across the road, like, this isn't academic anymore, clearly. You said you were going back to the ship to get a signal amplifier so we could get a better picture for I Love Lucy. Instead, you're over here playing kissy pie with these hairless apes. You're in too deep. You're going native. You've been co-opted. And he's like, yeah, I have. And she's like, well, I order you to stop. And I love it. He's like, on what authority? There's no mission. We're just aliens on a planet now. Chain of command's gone. You can't tell me what to do. And them's the breaks. We move into our next kind of featurette, which is where Mistral is having a chat with the dude he initially pool hustled. They're like, hey, man, it's been a while since we've seen you. Like, what's going on? Maggie's really, said she hasn't seen you in a couple of days now. And Mistral's like, well, I can't. Boom! Mind
Oh, but
collapse.
before the mind collapse, there is a scene where Tegilf talks to Billy about meditation and like expanding consciousness. It's just one of the two scenes that happens that sort of fleshes him out, which it provides to Gilf with the motivation to be more involved in what's going on. So it's important that it does happen because she goes from do not fucking interact with these people to warming up more and more as the episode goes on. And her conversation with Billy is a big part
The
of that.
shock that I had that they didn't end up like bending to Gilf into Stifler's mom somehow, where she takes Billy's virginity and put
The
her behind.
restraint.
Yeah, like how is this not? How is she not having this conversation with him on the other side of a backlit bed sheet with nipples out? Like, if you want your apple pie moment, it would have been between these two. So if I'm going to give any kind of golf clap to the writers, it'll be for avoiding having to Gilf sleep with Billy.
As you mentioned, though, there is a mine accident.
Well,
and
this is where Mistral is going to be going from the character known as Mistral to Vulcan dude bro.
Mistral is so struck by the tragedy of this moment that his first course of action is to go to the ship, and he even calls his shipmates to be like, help me find a fucking particle weapon. I have to help free the 20 miners who are trapped because it's going to take the humans days to get there with their tools, and I can just zap some fucking rocks and I can get them the fuck out of there. And the response that he initially gets from Tegilf and Strawn is, no, let them die. Are you fucking serious? We can't let them know we have particle weapons. How do you think that fucking ends? And he said, like, I have empathy for these people. I am going to help them. And it's a great example of how different Vulcans are about arguing with each other, because there is never a direct threat of violence. It is a duel of rhetoric where ultimately he basically says, I advise not to try and stop me, right? Like, I have decided I'm going to help these people. Like, that's what Mistral says after he's clearly not going to be able to convince Strawn to help. And he's essentially trying to convince them not to try and intervene, but they never get to the point where they try to physically interact with each other. It's all arguments. And eventually Mistral just calls the bluff and says, I'm going to fucking find a gun and I'm going to help these people. And I do not advise you try and stop me from doing so. And the calling that bluff is enough to end the entire kind of dispute. And ultimately, to Gilf, elects to assist Mistral in assisting the miners by helping guide him along a path where he's not going to get fucking caught.
So what you got is Vulcan dude bro down in the mines with a big shiny chrome dildo gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he's hiding somewhere in his pants or something, in his overalls.
In his prison wallet.
Yeah.
And you've got Tagilf topside with the same exact type tricorder that T'Pol uses. And she's gonna,
it's like an iPhone 4, and it's not, and
it's the 3G.
T'Pol now has the iPhone 10,
yeah.
has the 11 or something now.
Yeah.
So this is a prior version. It doesn't have as good a camera.
Yeah. She guides them through zapping a couple walls, as you mentioned. They find the miners. Again, I'm expecting them to be discovered or some sort of wrench to be thrown in to take us back down tropey territory, but no, the whole thing goes off without a hitch. Great. He saves the day. Vulcan Dude Bro is now the hero of the town. They're being embraced by everybody. And life seems like it's going pretty swell for their little sitcom living situation. But then the unthinkable happens, and the old communicator, we get some science, some shades of what was Little Lame House on the Prairie, where they come back for Janeway.
Oh yeah, we're when you thought that would not happen,
mm-hmm.
They contact him. There was two things about how they set all this up that I thought was cool. One, it's 3 months after the mine collapse they show up, so they have plenty of time to settle in to being real fixtures in the community, which again belays why they all have a different attitude by the time they're getting pulled out. Even the one who doesn't want to be
Mo,
there.
yeah.
Even Mo is like, I'm still fixing this for this lady.
That was my favorite part. So yeah, they get contacted by the Vulcans. They're like, we're going to be entering the solar system. We got your distress signal. We'll be there in 3 days, which I don't know what the space math is that would entering the solar system, but it's still going to take 3 days. Whatever. It's very clear that Vulcan Dude Bro is not going to be heading back. But yeah, the last day when they're getting everything ready, well, almost everything ready. Yeah, seeing Mo sitting there, he's like, I thought we all quit our jobs, and Mo's still fixing a fucking vacuum cleaner. He's like, yeah, but that lady asked me if I could help her out anyways. And
yeah, I said I would. And I liked that when they cut back briefly back to Enterprise, and they're talking about the fact that Mistral saved those miners, and are like, and Trip asks it with incredulity, didn't they fucking wonder how he did it? And the way T'Pol answers it is, of course they did, but they chose just not to explore that question. Everyone knew that was weird, but this guy saved all these people's lives. They're not gonna fucking ask how. Even if they're fuck it, thanks, you're great.
The good old days.
Yeah, they're I don't know if you're some fucking weird commie. He's got some fucking weird commie shit.
I've actually seen his ears. I'm pretty sure all 3 of those guys are demons on the run from hell.
Yeah, but whatever. You're super nice, and you're dating the bartender,
mm-hmm.
and you saved all of our lives, so we're not gonna fucking ask. It's
all right, then
you hang out in this one apartment with this one chick and this one other dude. There's layers of this that we do not need to fucking uncover. Okay, thank you so much for saving our lives. You're great, and you can continue to work in this mine as long as you'd like. That was such a just the very subtle way of you can sense how these 1950s humans feel out these guys are fucking weird, but they're actually being super great. So we're just not going to fucking upset this apple cart.
What's happening right now is that you can get clearly massive buy-in from your audience for the most ridiculous situation if you just call attention to it and put the flimsiest of reason in there. How many times did we take Voyager to the mat and bitch about things? Because all it needed was that one throwaway line of dialogue. And here it is. Some guy got through 3 weeks of mining work and saved a room full of miners. Yeah, it didn't really seem like it should add up, but people were cool with it because he was a hero.
Oh, yeah, because he did it.
Good enough, thanks.
Of course it was suspicious to them, so they just were well, it's not like this gift horse in the mouth. Great, yeah, absolutely.
So along those 3 days, Gilf will encounter Billy, who's got some sad news. He was not able to get all the money together, and he cannot go to college after all. And we see Gilf raise the people's eyebrow. Clearly, this will not stand. So she fulfills her destiny, as we all saw in the script. She returns to the Vulcan-downed science vessel to begin pulling out all the copper piping to take it to the local steel yard, along with all of her beer cans, to come up with the money to get Billy to go to school after all. No. What she does is gives humanity Velcro.
I like the idea that T'Pol wants to solve this problem.
To
This
Gilf.
kid does. This kid need. Yeah, T'Gilf needs to solve this problem. This kid deserves to go to college. He is part of humanity's bright future. What can I do to generate this money? Well, I could sell some of our technology.
Well, hold
but
on a
some of this
second.
stuff-
Let me
Well,
put my
hold on. Let me finish my thought. Okay. So she's going through this. Like, what? Well, I could sell some of our technology for cash that we can use to make this happen. But what technology can I sell that is harmless yet enough of a technological advance that I can make a quick dollar off selling it to someone else and then fucking off? And Velcro is like the perfect idea for that. It's handy, it's space agey, but it is also quite like achievable for humans to develop.
And
So
ironically, the
here,
guy who does develop it is the name of the Vulcan in real life.
yeah,
Mistral.
yeah, it was like a French guy, Demistral, or
Maybe
something like that.
maybe we should have done this as a skit before we started recording, but let's pose this question. How is Gilf going to get the money to get Billy through school? And Rick
Mm-hmm.
Berman and Bran Braga sitting there brainstorming. Well, she could strip all the copper out of the spaceship. I'm sure there's some, valuable commodities there she could hawk. Or maybe she like sells off Velcro. What if she enters the local amateur night at the strip club and we show her dancing with her nipples out behind like a mylar sheath and people just making it rain all over her, and she just strips her way to getting Billy that. And then Dan O'Shannon, who was the third person credited by the story, maybe even Chris Black's like, dude, we can't, we can't do that.
They just grab some chloroform and they partially suffocate Brandon Braga long enough to take that
No,
out of the fucking.
she's gonna sell him Velcro,
Go to sleep.
and then Dan O'Shannon sitting there watching this actually premiere, like really patting himself on the back, like, God, I'm so happy I talked those guys out of that fucking tacky Gilf naked silhouette, the storyboard showing her nipples, and then he gets to the part where they're stealing clothes and see that that's where they move the scene. He's like, damn it!
Almost got us out of this one, guys.
I would have actually been less offended had Gilf gone to the local strip club for amateur night and seen her nipples in an appropriate setting, not someone's backyard she's currently stealing from. That would have been fucking awesome, actually. That wouldn't even been exploitation. That would have just been like, all right, if you're gonna do it the right way. So yeah, she sells the Velcro, but not the good Velcro. That's like the silent rip from Garden State.
Yeah.
This is like
Gotta let the humans figure some stuff out for themselves, right?
she
Give them
also
a
gave him the
starting point.
shitty low grade kind that like picks up all the lint too and just gets so fucked up that it's
perfectly chosen. Like, this is just enough to be worth a few $100s, which is all I need, and they'll start some innovation, and no one will fucking know. They already have the materials to make this shit. They just needed to accidentally come across it, and none of that's in dialogue. It's just implied, and it's perfect implications along the way. The money magically shows up in the jar. Everyone is excited, and as you mentioned, the precisely the guy who you would expect is going to stay behind is going to stay behind, and he calls the bluff again and says, "I'm not going, and I'm not asking for permission to stay. So you two can decide however you want to fucking put that to the bosses. But I've decided I'm going to explore this country and its cities, and I'm going to see this shit firsthand. And
maybe
that's
die
what's
in
up.
World War III if that ever
Who
happens."
knows? No, you're a truther. It never happened.
I'm not the only truther in this episode, and we'll get to that in a second. The important part there is he gets buy-in from Mo and to Gilf to
Yeah.
continue the strong Vulcan tradition of lying we established this episode to the point where they're now lying to Vulcan High Command. The Vulcans show up. They go, hey, there's supposed to be 4 of you. Sorry, 2 of them actually died. I assume that once they get back into orbit, they nuke the Vulcan crash site because it's the only way to make sure the humans never get a hold of that. They kind of gloss over it. I like that Vulcan dude, bro. It's like, yeah, I am overly involved, but also I'm a historian, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to watch them on the cusp of this very important time. I do not want to give up the mission. I do not want to come back 20 years later and record from space. I want to be in the field and really giving this my all. And they're like, all right, we'll lie for you, I guess. Off we go. We jump back into the dinner table. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but somebody poses something about Armstrong on the moon. And I got some real shades that T'Pol denies the initial lunar landing.
Yeah, she's like, what if he isn't? Like, it's part of the joke, right? Like, I get what they're trying to set up is they didn't quite land it the way they wanted to, which is that should have been an indicator that Paul is doing this as a gag. You know,
No.
when that happens, and that could be like where Trip, like, oh, you fucking got me. I believed you. You fucking got me.
T'Pol's proving World War III never happened, and neither did the lunar landing stage.
Call Joe Rogan. Call Joe Rogan immediately. This is an episode he needs to say. It ends awkwardly, like we already discussed, where she says it's a joke after they won't believe it, and the big reveal at the end is T'Pol gets out a purse that her great grandmother had, indicates the entire story was in fact 100% accurate. That is why she went to Carbon Creek. It isn't the stupid geological survey thing which she like lays out to Archer. Like, that's just her cover, because quite possibly no one knows aside from, you know, T'Pol and her family and presumably Mo's family that this shit actually happened.
The interesting story turn here would have been her to start telling the story, them to say, no way, that's bullshit, everybody knows Zephyr and Cochrane, and then her to say, actually, it was a big secret that my family kept from Vulcan High Command.
Yeah, like my great-great-grandmother was party to treason.
Yeah, right, to cultural contamination and God knows what else. Because it's almost...
it also provides a tremendous amount of rationale as to why T'Pol is so personally invested and interested in humanity.
That's what I'm wondering what's going to happen. Is there this family tradition that has been handed down that there's something about humanity, ignore what the Vulcan government says, grandma's telling her daughter, the humans are good, we need to back them. That's my takeaway from all of this. She pulls the purse out. I would think that it's almost negligent that Archer and Trip don't go, hey, Admiral Forrest, just real quick, can you look into this story? Like, she said it was a joke, but just in case. They say they got files on it. I find it fucking ridiculous that of all the things T'Pol is going to bring on, I'm busting Archer's balls about bringing his grade school astronomy book. I'm going to bring my fucking grandma's purse.
I mean, if it's an artifact of her great-great-grandmother's time on Earth, I get her bringing it. I'll buy that. Like, this is a family heirloom of a secret of our connection to humanity. I'm about to be an officer on this human ship. I'm about to be assigned to Earth, and then I'm going to be an officer on this human ship. I'm bringing the fucking purse.
Let's flesh.
They're into ancestor worship, you know, like they believe in having like idols, basically. Like, this makes sense.
Yeah, this is a real Akuchi Moya moment. I guess I was almost thinking, like, when she went to Carbon Creek, was she somehow getting that purse that her grandmother left behind, or you think her grandma brought that back, that to Gilf brought that back, and it's been a family heirloom that's been passed down? I could have gone. I
think she brought it back because they were in human clothes when they got to the ship.
If she had opened it up and like pulled out a journal that her grandma kept, and maybe that had been, and I don't know the right way to like flesh it out because it's a silent ending just showing her pulling that out. But yeah, my grandma kept a diary. It's my grandma's writings that really inspired me and opened me up to the human mission and brought me here and has made me as warm to their behavior as it is. Like, that would have been A plus retcon explanation. Like, why does T'Pol put up with so much bullshit? Why is she so loyal to the humans? Undeservedly so in season 1 that we criticized earlier. I also thought it would have been cool if part of her trip back to Carbon Creek would have been to actually recover Mestral's diaries or notes on his next 100 or so years of observing humanity.
I mean, technically speaking, given when they were there, he could have simply survived until first contact and then like contacted the Vulcan ship and like, hey, I've been here for a fucking century.
They nuked me, but I lived through it because it's not real.
Get the fuck out of here, actually. It would be nice.
They said there's nukes. There were no nukes. It's all a lie.
So hard to know exactly where to take that one, but lots of potential. Like we said, it's not a terrible episode. Not at all. There's some interesting ideas. Some of the stuff where it's the Vulcans kind of arguing about humanity, and Mistral's story arc throughout it is cool, but fuck me, this show is still trying to establish its identity, and they go way off the fucking beaten path to do this one. Like, this is not a season 2 episode. I said it was like a season 2 episode 13.
This is season 5.
This is like deep in the run.
Or
you've tapped out for a while, and you gotta go deep for creativity. They haven't even done the basics yet, and they're already doing this stuff. It's not good.
Or,
if
you're gonna play this as season 2 or episode 2, you go deep into what we just talked about, where we disclose that T'Pol has a concrete soft spot built in that has been passed down from her family to believe in the humans, and something that bridges the gap of all the nonsense she went through in that season 1. Then if you had used it, had they used this as a Barge of the Dead moment, like Barge of the Dead sucked because we had the story too many times, and they were bringing that out, season 7? Or was that season 6?
It was season 6. That was a season sucks moment.
Yeah. Had that happened like season 1, would have worked great. Would have been perfect. It would have bolstered the character. No complaints. I think this could have been a real good way to use that in a highly productive setting, but oh well.
I would recommend when you read the intro for next week's episode, you read it from memory alpha. Otherwise, you might spoil yourself.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you go ahead and do it, since my method of reading is spoiler heavy, traditionally.
No problem. It's going to be season 2, episode 3, Minefield. Enterprise strays into a Romulan minefield and is disabled by a cloaked mine. While deactivating another mine, Reed gets pinned to the ship's hull. This begins a long Enterprise show long, actually, subplot about the Romulans, which was all intended to lead to season 5. Of course, Enterprise only has 4 seasons, so we know what's going to happen there.
Here I thought you were going to say this is going to begin a long-running gag of Reed getting stuck to the outside of the ship for various reasons.
Maybe that too. But this is cool. I like this one, and it has actually a direct follow-up after this, which is also very neat. But the biggest shame to me is that they intended to pay off the Romulan subplot that they start in this episode in season 5, the actual Earth-Romulan war that is in lore for Star Trek. They don't ever get a chance.
Moops.
Boopsie boopsie. Instead, we'll deal with an interesting submarine-style story next week. Thanks for listening to V'ger Please. We'll see you then.